saw Governor Mike Huckabee along with human rights lawyer Brooke Goldstein. Brooke, I'll start with you. I know you know a lot about this. Preet Bharara is a former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, probably one of the most prestigious in the country. And he prosecuted this woman, Siddiqui, which is the motivation behind this Texas synagogue hostage taker. And was quoted as saying, you know, that she was quoted as saying, I want to kill as many effing Americans as I can, and other anti-Semitic things, and had been radicalized after 9/11. So how do you possibly make that statement with the FBI, knowing the facts are on the record? This person got 86 years in jail.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. Thank you for having me on this issue. I first want to say that the Jewish community is incredibly grateful to the FBI and to the Texas SWAT team for ending this hostage situation without any innocents dead. But I will say that I'm equally troubled by the cover-up that is happening right now as to the truth of the matter, because the truth is an inconvenient one, and that is that the Jewish community is a minority community that has been targeted with violence, and that Jew hatred is systemic and on the rise, and that Islamist terrorism, not Islamophobia, but Islamist terrorism remains a very real threat to the national security of this country. And the reason why the FBI and the mainstream media now that is taking advantage of this very poorly worded statement is engaging in these, mental acrobatics to deny the truth is because we have been victimized by a coordinated bullying campaign by hate groups like the Council on American Islamic Relations that you know well, to slander anyone as Islamophobic and to bully them into being silent about the threat of Islamist terrorism and the Jew hatred that really is inseparable with that threat.
I have a hard time in this woke era, Mike Huckabee, and we don't rush to judgment. I'm looking at the comments of the lead prosecutor in this case in the Southern District of New York. This guy was motivated by this very virulent anti-Semitic woman who made anti-Semitic comments even during the trial and at other times, and I'm just trying to understand why they would rush out there and say something that they, on the surface, would know likely is not true. I do applaud them for what they did. It takes great courage to put your life on the line the way these FBI agents did. But I'm not talking about the agents that went into the synagogue to save lives and the other law enforcement. I'm talking about specifically the comments that are made afterwards when all common sense is pointing at the fact that this guy was motivated by virulent anti-Semitism.
I don't want to take anything away from the FBI agents who helped end the crisis, but let's give credit where credit is due. The real hero here was that young rabbi who literally put his life on the line.
Agreed.
And took action throwing the chair in order to give those other parishioners an opportunity to get out. He very well could have died because that shooter could have decided, okay, he has allowed them to get away. He's not going to get away. He's a hero. He really is. And Sean, I've got a question maybe I'd love to ask the FBI. How are we going to expect to keep America-hating, anti-Semitic terrorists out of our synagogues when we can't even keep them out of Congress? And a lot of this behavior is justified by people who sit in Congress today, and that is a tragedy.
And that is, by the way, the big unanswered question is, as the law requires, Donald Trump did call up 20,000 troops, and no, they were not utilized when the chain of command went to the mayor of D.C. and went to Nancy Pelosi, but that's for another day. Brooke, you mentioned something that is now true and well documented, and that is the rise of anti-Semitism around the world. To me, it's getting chilling and frightening. And I'm especially concerned about the Biden administration, taking its foot off the gas when it comes to pressuring Iran and easing sanctions on Iran. I don't know. If you marry radical Islam with weapons of mass destruction, I don't like the outcome or the potential outcome.
Right. And, it sort of exactly follows what I was saying before, in the sense that Americans are now being bullied and duped into thinking that this whole theologically motivated terrorism stemming from Islamist terrorists is not a threat. And Iran, being the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, is very much a threat, not just to Israel, not just the Jewish community, but to America and to a peaceful world. And when you have groups like the Council on American Islamic Relations, who on the one hand are lobbying for the release of Lady al-Qaeda, and also at the same time telling their Muslim communities that Zionists are the enemy and synagogues are the enemy, they are parroting that radical language coming out of Pakistan. They're parroting the radical language coming out of Iran. And we're facing a very real problem that we need to be able to talk about freely and openly without being slandered.
And Mike Huckabee will give you the last word. When you couple that with our open borders and Joe Biden aiding and abetting law breaking, and there's and even preferential treatment, no COVID tests, no mandates, you get a free ticket to the state of your choice. And we have people from over 150 countries identified crossing that border. That's pretty scary.
It is pretty scary. The one thing that we can be grateful for is they didn't blame this on climate change or some group of right-wing people. I want to make sure you understand, when I was talking about America hating anti-Semites, I'm talking about people who are elected to Congress, not people who show up to protest. That's what worries me, is that we have people who aid and abet this attitude and behavior. And we need to be just very, very clear that there are people who hate the Jewish people. And this is wrong, and it's dangerous, and we need to stand with Jewish people across the world, especially here in our own United States. They're our friends, they're our brothers and sisters, and they are under attack from these crazy radicals from across the world.
And they're even threatening to attack this country. The Iranian mullahs, pay close attention. I said that this year I worry about Putin on the Ukrainian border, China after the Olympics. I think they will try to take Taiwan, and the Iranians, God knows what they're up to. Thank you both. Brooke, thank you. Mike, thank you.